Hey, this is Zulem Urbina, and tune into the relay for the latest news in boxing all around the world. Thank you for supporting myself and other female boxers. We truly appreciate it.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, let's start with this. Correspondence between champions, between fellow champions, Alicia Baumgartner, newly crowned unified Ring Magazine and lineal super featherweight champion and long-reigning champion of Korea. Yoonmi Choi posted this image with a caption that reads, WBA Champion's 10th defense match was a success. Thank you to everyone who supported us. We'll see you soon for the unified title match. Thank you. Did you read that? See that? You hear that?
Yeah.
Unified title match. Alicia Baumgartner responded by saying, congratulations. Great boxing skills to beat a skilled opponent. Ready and waiting. Let's get this fight right now. To which Yoonmi Choi responded, congratulations on beating Mayer. I hope our fight goes well. It seems all but a foregone conclusion to many that Alicia Baumgartner, in spite of not being as experienced a professional as Yoonmi Choi, in spite of not being as long-reigning a champion, that young Alicia has everything she needs and everything it takes to take Yoonmi Choi's WBA title from her. Yoonmi Choi, who sports a professional record of 19 wins, no losses, 1 draw, with 5 knockouts. The longest reigning champion at this weight. Champion of the past 8 or 9 years. 10 title defenses, 10 successful ones. Alicia Baumgartner, who sports a professional record of 13 wins, 1 loss with no draws. 7 knockouts. Could soon be 8 if she gets Yoonmi Choi in the ring. This is yet another instance where there's more to boxing than what you see on paper. You know, it's not that Yoonmi Choi never fought anybody good. She did. But in the last 4, going on 5 years or so, she hasn't been keeping a busy enough schedule of activity to stay a sharp fighter, a champion that is sharp and improving. She just hasn't been doing that. And young Alicia, she exhibits a higher ceiling, more ability, mobility, agility, power. Alicia has shown more in 14 fights than Yoonmi Choi has in 19, well, really 20. It's really 20. BoxRec just hasn't updated their ranked standings yet. That's all it is. Yoonmi Choi, for the most part, she's a mid-range to inside fighter, an offensively minded fighter. For the most part, that's what she's been. Statuesque for the weight. She has height and she has length, though she doesn't really use it because she's a mid-range to inside fighter. When she employs that jab and steps into it, she's trying to get within striking distance as opposed to keeping a fighter out, as opposed to keeping a fighter at arm's length. That's not Yoonmi Choi's calling card. Yoonmi Choi's calling card really is mid-range to inside fighting. She's a close quarters fighter, she is. Her last fight with Vanessa Bradford, a common opponent between Yoonmi Choi and Alicia Baumgartner. Having seen so many of Yoonmi Choi's fights, in that particular fight, it looked like Yoonmi Choi was working on her boxing, trying to tidy things up a bit, using the jab more. Trying her best not to throw caution to the wind. But even with that, she's getting touched with jabs, certain kinds of punches, certain kinds of shots that from a more interesting puncher, a bigger puncher, I don't think Yoonmi Choi would have taken those shots as well, i.e. Alicia Baumgartner. Yeah, I don't think she can afford to take very many clean punches from Alicia, who I think is the physically stronger fighter, the faster fighter, the sharper fighter, and the more malleable athlete. With better feet and better skills, I have to be honest. There's really nothing that Yoonmi Choi does better than Alicia Baumgartner. Absolutely nothing. God bless her.
If you feel that way, why even do the fight?
Because it's a necessary evil for the division and for the sport. The women's super featherweight division stood divided for years. Separate champions that were staying away from each other, not unifying. Seems all that has changed. Let's just hope that Yoonmi Choi follows through on her word. Let's hope that they do end up unifying next year because the division needs this, the sport needs this. In many ways, Alicia Baumgartner is already the queen of super featherweights. In many ways, she already is. In many ways, she's already the face of this division, but there is more work needs doing. I think she can stop Yoonmi Choi. I think she can. And what better way to see yourself crowned, your division's undisputed champion, than stopping the only other champion at this weight? I know that there's an outcry in some circles, small ones, really just a case of sour grapes. People that wanted Mikaela Mayer to win the fight, picked her to win the fight, they want Alicia to run it back with Mikaela. But I can only tell you now what I told you before. If the shoe were on the other foot and Mikaela would have won a close fight with Alicia... You think Mikaela would have given Alicia a rematch? You think she would have ran it back? You know the answer. She wouldn't have given Alicia the time of day. The bad blood between them, she wouldn't have given Alicia the satisfaction. The satisfaction of a rematch. This is really just a case of nobody liking their own medicine. Nobody likes a taste of their own medicine, and Alicia Baumgardner isn't doing anything to Michaela that Michaela wouldn't readily do to Alicia. You know it. So how does young Alicia Baumgartner win this fight? Well, Hyun-Mi Choi, she might have a bit of height and length for this division. She actually has very generous physical dimensions for a super featherweight and some punching power. She's slower than Alicia, not as big a puncher. Alicia's got speed and power on her side, agility, mobility. Talked about how Hyun-Mi Choi in her last fight with Vanessa Bradford yesterday, she tried to show more of a jab, but it's a bit of a lazy jab, the kind of jab that you can counter with a big right hand over the top. I don't think Hyun-Mi Choi gets the hand back fast enough to protect that side of her face. When she shoots it, looks a bit low. Because Alicia has speed, characteristically angles that torso of hers, changes levels, she can get under and around that jab, slip that jab, and come right over the top with a big right hand. She's got the speed and power to do it. When she lands, Hyun-Mi Choi will be caught out there. She won't be ready for the punch. She won't brace herself for it, so it'll land hard. The looping right or the short left hook, mid-range to inside. Two very big punches that Alicia can land on Hyun-Mi Choi, who exhibits very leaky defense. Alicia's got so many advantages. I just see her teeing off on Hyun-Mi Choi, having her way with her. Hyun-Mi Choi's not as defensively responsible as Michaela Mayer, doesn't have as good a jab, movement, managing the distance. I don't think she knows how to measure her distance as well as Michaela, or Alicia, who beat Michaela, for that matter. Alicia shows different variations of the jab, different variations of the lead hand. The stab to the body downstairs to the midsection. The double jab to close the gap and close it safely to bring over a big right hand. Alicia's got a lot of tools to beat Hyun-Mi Choi. And if she does get beat, it's okay. There's no shame in it. There's no shame in a champion behaving like a champion, losing with grace, losing with dignity to your fellow champion. It's better than losing to someone beaten up and comer like Ramona Grafe. There's no shame in losing whilst vying to become the authority at your weight. Your division's undisputed champion. I don't think for a second it's going to work out for Hyun-Mi Choi, but I won't discourage her from trying. I won't shame her for faltering if and when she does falter, because I think she would falter. Alicia is simply too good. Too good. Now you guys know why I've been ranting and raving about this woman for all these years. She's here. In men's heavyweight news, boxing insider Rick Glacier has released a figure in association with this past weekend's box office fight between Deontay Wilder and Robert Hephaestus. Helenius. Pay-per-view buys aren't as bad as I anticipated. It did a grand total of 77,000 homes. That's good for a comeback fight that shouldn't have even been a pay-per-view. With the WBC ordering Wilder versus Ruiz, if that fight happens, that's a pay-per-view fight. That PBC can proudly hang their hat on, but 77,000 buys. I mean, if that's all Wilder did in his big comeback fight, he probably won't do much more than that with Andy Ruiz. I anticipated more. Much more than just 77,000 buys. Quite honestly, I anticipated somewhere between 300,000 and 400,000 buys. And what that indicates is that Wilder's audience has, in fact, shrunk over time. Overall interest in this fighter is waning, and interest in this fight is virtually non-existent. Was non-existent, which is not what I anticipated. I thought absence making the heart grow fonder, Deontay Wilder having been away from the ring for so long, his core supporters, his fans, and the people that bought the 3 Tyson Fury fights. I thought there might still be enough of them left that they might be interested in his ring return and they might purchase this fight. You have to take a step back to realize how sharp a decline this is. From 600,000 pay-per-view buys opposite the ring Tyson Fury to just 77,000. Not even 100,000. 77,000 buys at a price point of $80 gets you around $6 million. $6 million. You tack on whatever Deontay generated at the gate at the Barclays Center, which I would estimate is somewhere between, $4 and $5 million, somewhere around there. What you're looking at is $10 million, or just under that.
Jesus.
Oh, that's not a lot of money. It's not a lot of money for a former champion that some heralded as the revival of the American heavyweight in today's heavyweight division. That's not a lot of money.
Don't forget, it's not like he takes all of that home, whatever was generated at the gate and whatever was generated at the box office. A good chunk of that is going to go to offsetting the operational costs of the show.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a free lunch. It's not like Deontay Wilder pockets all of that money.
So was this a box office flop?
It really depends on what the operational costs were. What was guaranteed to the fighters? Guaranteed purses? What dollar amount? What did all of this cost the event's coordinators?
This was a Fox pay-per-view, and Fox is rumored to not be shelling out any cash, any of the production costs for PBC shows. They're just giving them a platform to air their shows, but they're not financing them.
Which makes you wonder if they even turned over a profit from this thing at all. Did they make any money?
Boxing scribe Michael Woods produced a figure of his own. He posted a tweet that reads, "You saw maybe reference to Wilder versus Helenius pay-per-view numbers in the 75,000 range. My guy who knows that side of the biz said,
The number might be lower, like in the 50,000 range. Lots of competition for eyeballs that night." That's right. You know, the Devin Haney versus George Kambosos Jr. rematch was on the biggest sports network in this country, ESPN. It drew close to 1 million eyeballs.
You know, I wondered if that could affect the buy rate for Wilder's fight. The fact that there was another show happening at the same time, and it would be at no additional charge.
No pay-per-view.
You could watch it on ESPN or ESPN Plus, and you kind of get the sense that it might have, that perhaps if those two shows weren't going head-to-head, maybe Wilder would have done, I don't know, north of 100,000 buys, or just north, maybe 125, maybe 150, though that's tantamount to arguing who the tallest midget is. In any event,
Still minuscule.
50,000, 75,000, it's still a minuscule number. A sharp decline from the 600,000 buys Deontay produced opposite the ring Tyson Fury in their third outing, their third fight.
Hey, not even half? Not even half of the 600,000 people that bought that fight bought this one?
There are some content creators here on YouTube, pro-Wilder channels, that seem to have more subscribers.
Seem to have more subscribers than he generated pay-per-view buys, if you can believe that.
And what that essentially means is that these guys, they might think Deontay hails the moon and the stars, and they might argue about him night and day, but when push comes to shove, they don't actually support this fighter. They don't patronize him the way that Canelo Alvarez's fans patronize him and purchase his pay-per-views, attend them, buy his fights.
Bums don't buy shit.
You don't buy shit. You don't buy anything. You sit online arguing about this fucking guy all day so you can end up stealing his fight the night of it.
Fucking freeloaders.
I'm not the guy that's high on Deontay Wilder, you understand. I'm not obligated to patronize him because I'm not a fan of him. But these guys, they are, or they claim to be, though when push comes to shove, where are these guys?
Not the metrics for this fight, that's for goddamn sure.
The onus to buy this fight and support it and make it a successful box office event was on them more than anybody.
Yeah, because they're the ones that claim to be fans of this guy.
I was watching the Devin Haney fight. I was watching the ESPN card.
If anybody needs to hang their heads in shame over these numbers, it's those guys that claim to be Deontay Wilder's supporters.
Whatever is left of them. Perhaps the myriad of excuses he made after the second fight hurt his following, hurt his fan base.
All those excuses he made just to lose the third fight, the same way he lost the second one.
People have limits.
Reason available to fight. It is what it is. I mean, look, this has been very difficult, not down to us, down to the fact that Usyk pulled himself out and Joshua pulled himself out. So we are where we are.
Joe Joyce did say if it was maybe a couple of weeks later on around December.
A couple of weeks later, we've got a book for the third, and that's the end of it. And he's on holiday. I mean, you know, this is what it is. So you can sit here, keep throwing names that are not available. So why do you keep doing it? It's impossible.
I'm just kind of going off what was discussed previously, Frank. So obviously,
Previously with who?
it's kind of what Joe Joyce, as I said, Joe Joyce mentioned December 7th.
Told you he's not going to be available for this date. This is the date we've got.
Frank's not being entirely honest about the situation, and I don't expect him to be. The real issue is that Tyson Fury, by himself, is not so big a box office draw that you can just stick him in there with anybody and drum up big business, drum up big pay-per-view buys. That's why they resorted to...
I mean, listen, Tyson Fury says that he wants to fight 3 times next year.
And he was asked if he believes the Anthony Joshua fight will ever happen. He said, I don't think so. No, it's too hard to work with them. It's too difficult. You can't make someone do something
they don't want to do.
He's not wrong, you know. You can't make people do something they don't want to do, and you can't make them buy something they don't want to buy.
It doesn't matter how you got here.
You can make this about Usyk and Anthony as much as you like.
That doesn't make this fight attractive. That doesn't make it appealing. Your real problem is Tyson Fury wants so much money every time he gets out there, you've no choice but to bill his fight as a pay-per-view, even if the fight ain't box office.
You got a fighter? He wants to fight at a fixed rate, and the problem is the fight fans' interest. That's not fixed. It varies, fight by fight.
Of course, you could get more of the fight fans, the paying customers, the paying public in the UK. Of course, you could get them more interested in an undisputed showdown with Usyk.
More so than you could with this fight.
Just that the selling point can't be. The selling point for a box office fight can't be, well, we tried to get Joshua and we couldn't.
So here's this.
Doesn't work like that. That's tantamount to going to a restaurant for a steak and being served ramen noodles.
Being served top ramen instead and being expected to pay for it.
Maybe the restaurateur, he didn't buy enough steak, so they ran out. Whatever happened, it's not the customer's fault. It's not the customer's problem.
The sales pitch for a pay-per-view, the sales pitch for a box office fight can't be, well, we tried to get you something better, but we couldn't, so here's this.
It's the angle of promotion they seem to be taking. We tried to get you something better, but we couldn't. I mean, are they going to mention Anthony Joshua every single day and every week leading up to December 3rd? Because even if they do, that's not going to make this fight more attractive. Ultimately,
The problem isn't that you couldn't get AJ or you couldn't get Usyk. That's not the problem. You know what the real problem is?
the real problem is that Tyson Fury by himself, he ain't box office. He ain't that big a draw. I don't expect Frank Warren to say it. For God's sake, Frank Warren, he promotes him. That's the last thing he's going to say, but that's the real issue at hand here. If Tyson Fury were a big enough draw, you could stick him in there with a Geet Kabayel. You could stick him in there with Arslanbek Makhmudov or somebody, and the fight sells itself.
It would if he were a big enough draw.
Canelo Alvarez here in America went in there with a little-known Russian light heavyweight champion and still managed to sell over 500,000 pay-per-view buys.
And that was off his name alone because he was fighting a little-known Russian light heavyweight champion. The paying public, they weren't there for Bivol, they were there for Canelo.
The people that purchased the pay-per-view, they purchased it to see Canelo. Only hardcore, really hardcore fans knew anything about Dmitry Bivol. And don't forget that the price point for a pay-per-view in America is a lot steeper than the price point for a pay-per-view in the UK. Here in America, you pay roughly 4 times as much.
But a little over 500,000 people still paid to see that fight.
Because that's what real drawing power does. That's what real drawing power looks like. And Tyson Fury ain't got that kind of drawing power even in his own neck of the woods.
Yeah, maybe they could do a decent gate with this thing. Maybe they can. But at the box office,
That's where they're going to see it. That's where they're going to feel it.
you're running a business, and everything in business is supply and demand.
You can't supply a fight that no one is demanding from the marketing stance, the marketing angle that we tried to get you something better, but this was the best we could do.
That's not good enough.
No excuse. The real problem wasn't a scarcity of opponents. The real problem here is that Tyson Fury is not as big a draw as his fans would have you believe.
They'll never admit it, but that's the problem.